segment with Gifford one weekend. They got horses and cows.
We do have a quorum, so.
It's kind of hard to get one person to come.
What's that? Here he comes. We can start the meeting now.
Come roll, ladies and gentlemen. Come roll.
Did you? Not bad.
Mr. Roy.
We're ready to start. All right. I'd like to call to order the June 14th, 2021 Apex Planning Board meeting. I would like to ask Mark Steele if you would offer the invocation, please.
Dear Lord, thank you for your protection for those of us that have not been affected by the pandemic, and for those that have been affected, we pray for your continued healing. For tonight, we would ask you, as always, to guide both our minds and our hearts as we make these important decisions in the best interests of the town of Apex. Amen.
Amen. Please rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Amanda, any items of information today? Nothing today. At this time, we'll have the public comment for any non-public agenda items today. Does anybody wish to come forth to speak on any non-public agenda items? Staff, was there any emails or anything that came in for that? Okay. With that, we'll close that public comment session and go to consent item number 1, the minutes from the May 10th, 2021 meeting. I assume everybody's read them. Are there any comments, changes, a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
A motion from Keith. Do I have a second? Second from Tim. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Okay, Reggie. So at this time, we have one board member that needs to recuse himself. So
Make a motion that we have Ryan Akers step out on those items.
have a second.
Second.
Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, Ryan, we'll see you at item number 3. So at this time, Shannon. So Shannon will present the public hearing possible motion regarding the amendments to the thoroughfare and Collector Street and the plan map for Apex, Advanced Apex.
Okay, good evening, everybody. Late afternoon. Just to orient you to the area that we're discussing for this first public hearing. This is Green Level West Road here, and this is Wimberley. So we are in the northwest part of Apex. Green Level West Road is our boundary with Town of Cary. The proposed amendment to the thoroughfare and Collector Street plan map is to remove this future local connector street from our plan. As a reminder, local connectors are typically built to residential street standards. So this roadway would be similar to these other residential roads that you see here. This request is made by the applicant for the rezoning case for the next public hearing, 21 CZ04. So you may want to wait to actually vote until you hear both public hearing items. They're making this request because of the environmental impacts with this alignment of this future roadway. It's hard to see on the screen, but there are wetlands right here. This road was added to the plan in this location because it's directly across from existing Bachelor Road, but now that we have survey information from on the ground, there would be some substantial environmental impacts. The rezoning case is proposing their access point further to the west, which you'll see with their layout. We did discuss this with Public Works and Transportation staff, Fire, Parks, Rec, and Cultural Resources. There were no concerns about removing this from the plan. We did also talk with Town of Cary staff, since this is our border. They also did not have concerns with us removing this at this time. agreeing that, further down the road, when we look at Green Level West Road and potential widening and adding a median, we'll look at appropriate access points at that time. Planning staff can support this request, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Shannon. Anybody have any questions for Shannon?
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
This time I'll open up for any public comments. Seeing none, I'll close the public comment and bring it back to the board. Do we want to just wait until we hear the next case and then we'll vote for both? Okay.
Yes.
All right, so we'll close that one and move to item number 2, which is Shelley presenting the public hearing and possible motion regarding rezoning case 21 CZ04, the Williams Farm PUD.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Hello.
As Shannon pointed out, we are on the northwestern corner of the town's jurisdiction today, right up against Chatham County and just south of Cary. The property in question is about 61.9 or so acres and is mostly wooded. There are several streams, perennial and intermittent, a farm pond or 2, and some wetlands as well on the site. The site's currently zoned rural residential. The applicant is proposing planned unit development conditional zoning. The 2045 land use map designates this as low-density residential, so that's a maximum of 3 dwelling units per acre. The applicant is proposing a condition for 2.89, so this is consistent with the 2045 land use map. Just as an FYI, this is turned sideways. North is over here. And this is the boundary of the property here. This is just giving you an idea of the existing conditions. There are several outbuildings in this general area, the driveway. This is where the wetlands are shown as well. And then there's a stream that runs through this way with several large trees and some additional wetlands. To the south here is Lake Castleberry, both the subdivision and the actual lake. And then there's also another stream that comes up this way as well. This is the combined Cardinals and Colonial pipelines, the gas pipelines that run through town. That stretches across the site. And then we have the existing farm pond as well. The applicant held a neighborhood meeting on February 11th. That meeting report is attached to your staff report. As requested, staff asked for a letter of impact from Wake County Public School System, and that is included in your staff report as well. At the top of page 2 is a summary of that. It says that the elementary and middle schools within the current assignment area for this rezoning are anticipated to have insufficient capacity for future students, and construction within the next 5 years is not anticipated to address those concerns. For the rezoning itself, the applicant is proposing accessory apartment, single family, greenway, recreation facility private, park active, park passive, and utility minor as the uses. It's consistent with our single family residential rezoning cases in general. For some of the conditions, the applicant's proposing a maximum of 176 residential units on the property. It comes to that 2.89 dwelling units per acre that I mentioned a moment ago. They've also added the condition that no covenant prohibiting the accessory apartment use shall encumber the property, so no covenant with the HOA. And the applicant is proposing to contribute $284.10 per lot to the Apex Affordable Housing Fund to be paid at plat, with the assumption of 176 units that comes to about $50,000. The applicant's proposing architectural conditions that are consistent with what we normally see on our single-family rezonings, with one addition, that solar conduit is being provided on all single-family homes to accommodate future solar panels. The overall, sorry, I'm skipping down a second. I lost my place for a moment. The proposed PUD will comply with the UDO requirement for 30% of the project area to be RCA. There are also several champion trees in the vicinity right near the driveway up here on Green Level West. Keep wanting to say Green Level West Church. And they're committing to preserving at least 3 of those, subject to a health evaluation of the trees and some roadway design requirements. The buffers that they're proposing, and there's a typo in your staff report here, I apologize for that. They're actually proposing 30-foot type B buffers along Green Level West, which is what the UDO requires. I had 30-foot type E by accident, so. And then along the southern boundaries, the UDO requires a 10-foot type B, but the applicant is proposing a 20-foot type B buffer. To the east, adjacent to the large lot single family here and here, there's a 20-foot type B buffer proposed. That's double the width of what the UDO requires. And then adjacent to these lots next to these lots from Lake Castleberry itself, the smaller lots, they're proposing a 40-foot type B buffer, and the UDO only requires 10 feet. That was brought up during the neighborhood meeting and is in response to those requests from the neighbors. And then to the west, we have a 10-foot type B buffer as well. And then that little smidge piece right here is also a 10-foot type B buffer. So this used to be the site of the historic James Madison Williams house. It was designated as a Wake County landmark in 2015. Unfortunately, the home was lost to a fire in May of 2019. And since the historic home no longer exists, a number of the champion trees, as well as a really lovely stacked stone wall that are historic to the area, are being preserved. The applicant's has committed to preserving at least 200 linear feet of the existing stacked stone walls along the Green Level West Road frontage. Parts of the wall may be in disrepair, but they're going to reconstruct them to match the original look and feel. Just making sure. Yep. In addition, they're proposing to preserve the existing pond pending an evaluation of the dam. Now, the dam is not located on this property. It's right here, but the good news is that the owner of this parcel is also the owner of this parcel. So we don't have to worry about, getting access to someone else's land. So that'll make the evaluation easier. There will also be 2 acres of open space and pocket parks provided. Pocket parks are shown these little green squares, little red dot asterisks in the center. And they'll be providing a number of connection points through that with walking trails connecting everything. The applicants propose that no home within the community will be further than 800 feet from an improved open space area, like a play lawn, trailhead, greenway, or pocket park. In addition, the project is planning to increase the biodiversity in the perimeter buffers and open space by providing a higher number of species for canopy, understory, and shrub levels. Native and adaptive plants will be provided within these areas, and a minimum of 70% of the species will be native or nativar of plants of North Carolina. No invasive species will be used, and no single species of tree or shrub will constitute more than 20% of the plant material of its type. So basically, you'll have at the very, very minimum 5 different species of tall tree, 5 different species of short tree, and 5 different species of shrubs. And then, as per a request from the EAB, educational signage is also being installed, or is proposed to be installed, relating to wetlands and other on-site environmental features as well. Public facilities, the PUD will be served by Town of Apex water, sewer, and electric. Concept plan is included in here. This is roughly where we've got some of the water and sewer connections are here. There's a proposed pump station here. Electric will probably come in from here and also from Lake Castleberry subdivision. The applicant is proposing to meet the requirements for the master plans for water, sewer, and electric, as well as meeting the Apex Thoroughfare and Collector Street Map plans, the Advanced Apex Transportation Plan. assuming, of course, that you all approve the amendment to that plan. Based on the traffic impact analysis for this project, the following condition is proposed. The developer shall provide a westbound left turn lane with 50 feet of full width and appropriate deceleration length and taper on Green Level West Road at the location of the proposed public street accessing the subdivision, which will be located approximately 700 feet west of Bachelor Road. No other new points of access are proposed along Green Level West Road. The developer is responsible for any necessary roadway improvements to meet or exceed the required site distance there. Additionally, at the time of master subdivision, the developer shall work with the Town of Apex and NCDOT to ensure adequate site distance. This may require realignment of Green Level West Road and or a site distance easement across the frontage. The Apex Environmental Advisory Board held a pre-application meeting for this rezoning on February 18th. There were a number of zoning conditions suggested by the EAB. They are listed towards the middle of page 5 of your staff report. The proposed conditions were incorporated into the PUD in every instance. This project, it will be paying a fee in lieu according to the Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Advisory panel. That fee in lieu will be roughly $615,000 per unit basis. Planning staff recommends the approval of the rezoning. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them for you. The applicant is also here, and I think he does have a presentation as well.
Thanks, Shelley. Anybody have questions for Shelley before we hear from the applicant?
I have one question. Where was the entrance again? I'm sorry, I missed
Oh, I
that.
apologize. It is right here.
I'm sorry.
Might be
okay.
hard to
Oh,
see.
so- And that turn is pretty,
It's a nice
It's a
turn.
doozy right there.
Yeah,
okay.
that's where the brick wall is, actually.
Yeah.
Yep, that's where the brick wall was. Yep, where it is.
The stone wall is going to come,
Okay,
comes right through here. It's kind of this reddish looking line here. And then either this will be realigned to flatten that curve, or something else will be worked out to make sure the site distance through there gets improved.
okay.
Thanks, Shelley. The applicant would like to make a statement.
Good evening, everybody. Chairman Morris, members of the Planning Board. My name is Bob Zumwalt, and I'm a licensed landscape architect, and I'm in charge of design with Alliance Group. I'm joined tonight by Jacob Anderson, owner of Alliance Group, as well as Jesse Hardesty, our planner from McAdams. We're excited to present this case to you tonight. We've been working hard to create a lasting and quality community that responds to principles that are important to Apex, implements sustainable design practices, addresses the need for more attainable housing choices, preserves hardwood trees and hardwood tree canopy, and makes positive contributions to the school. Williams Farm, as Shelley mentioned, about 62 acres, right at the Chatham County line, south of Green Level West Road. Advanced Apex designates it as low density, as Shelley mentioned. Single-family lots, duplexes, and townhomes are what it allows for at a maximum density of 3 units per acre. We have capped our density at 2.89, with limiting it to only single-family and providing 30% RCA, as Shelley mentioned. This is a good map that shows the environmental a little better. As you can see, we had this assessment done. There's a number of streams. You can see the streams cross from Bachelor Road in addition to the wetlands that caused us to request the relief from the transportation plan so that we weren't crossing that. And it's important to note that we are preserving all of the environmental features. We're not proposing to impact any of them other than the one roadway connection into Castleberry that we're going to be making. I want to give a short little history on the property. The Williams Farm was purchased by the family in the late 1800s. The property was a tobacco farm until 1999. And then in 1995, it was a tobacco farm until 95. And then they founded the Williams Timber Company. And this picture here is a picture from 1999 where they were harvesting timber. You can see about 50% of the site was cleared to make way for the farming. And in the coming years after that, you can see how the pine regrowth kind of took back over the areas that they had cleared and farmed. And you'll see on our bubble plan that these are the areas we're focusing the bulk of our development. There's also some cool historical and cultural significance to the site. The images here show the Williams family gathered in front of the farmhouse, and you can see sort of the original house there on the bottom left where it sat kind of stately behind the champion trees and the stacked stone wall. As Shelley mentioned, the house isn't there, but we are preserving, or committing to preserve those trees, clean them up, get them healthy, and then to preserve and repair 200 feet of the wall at least. And we would do more than that. We want to incorporate it into the design of the community and try to use that rock wall type design in pocket parks and things like that. Before I get into the details of the proposal, it's important, we think, to kind of understand where the site sits in relation to this, what we call the Green Level West Growth Corridor. Green Level West is a 4-lane thoroughfare, 4-lane divided thoroughfare on both Cary and Apex's plans. And so you can see both of their plans here. The thoroughfare is shown here as the red dashed line that goes east to west, and then the area in purple highlighted, we call this growth corridor. And there's quite a bit of density planned for this corridor. You can see Cary is north of Green Level, Apex is south. So Duke Medical has a major medical campus on the far right there in pink. It's going to have a 250-bed hospital, 750,000 square feet of office, 55,000 square feet of commercial, hotels. Also, there will be close to 2,000 to 2,500 apartments in the corridor, closer to 540, multiple neighborhoods that include single-family and townhomes, a future Publix grocery store, you can see there, as well as some additional neighborhood commercial and office. As you can see, there's quite a bit positioned in this area, and this corridor will carry residences very efficiently to 540, and then giving them good access anywhere in the triangle. This site's 4 minutes from 540, 12 minutes to the new Apple campus, 15 minutes to the airport, just to give you a sense. We believe a successful project has to include collaboration with our neighbors. And so in addition to the neighborhood meeting that's required, we have had additional meetings with the neighbors that we share the eastern property line with. We've met them in the field, walked their property, walked our fence line, and then we even went back out at their request and staked in our field where homes might be located, just to give them a sense as to how far from their property lines development could occur. And I got to say, this process, there were good positive changes that came out of it. We removed the townhomes as a use. We started with townhomes in there, we took those out. We increased the buffer from a 10 to a 40-foot type A. Then one big one was we removed all the lots, all the storm ponds between the eastern property line and the stream buffer. So it gave the neighbors now an average of about 200 feet of undisturbed between their property line and where we would have the back of our lots. And it's been a great relationship with them. It's been very positive, and we'll continue to work with them as we move forward. I want to hit a few key elements and commitments. Shelley did such a good job. I'm going to go quickly here so I don't repeat. But the preservation of those oak trees is key. As soon as we saw this site, where we have to save those. And we'll improve that curve probably by flattening the curve. When we reconstruct Green Level West, it'll make it safer, and it'll also allow us to save the trees, we believe. Capping our density, setting a minimum lot size of 5,000 square feet, the RCA we mentioned, and then 2 acres of pocket parks and 1,800 feet minimum of walking trails. And then a good one is just everyone will be no further than 800 feet from an open space feature. You can see the yellow areas are where the development is allowed to occur, and the green is undisturbed. You can see the area down by Castleberry right in here, where that's a lot of buffer between the neighborhoods. You can see the yellow is roughly the bulk of the area that was revegetated with the regrowth of the pine. In addition to these elements, we are making these commitments to the environmental conditions, as Shelley mentioned, preserving the stacked stone wall, increased stormwater measures, signage for the wetlands, waste stations, increased buffers, saving the farm pond, and then the increased biodiversity and pollinator-friendly native plants, as well as seeding the gas line with butterfly-friendly wildflower mix, so it doesn't just look like a gas line. Solar conduit in all the homes, and then full cutoff streetlights. As Shelley mentioned, we were really happy we got a unanimous approval from the Environmental Advisory Board on February 18th. By clustering our homes on smaller lots, we were able to make these environmental commitments. We believe this style of development helps to fulfill some of the town's goals by preserving open space, champion trees, contiguous tree canopy, protecting environmental features, providing walking trails, and offering choices in housing that are more attainable. We do have architectural commitments. I'm not going to go through them, but it is very important in creating a sustainable community that the appearance of the homes are have architectural controls. The full list of our commitments is in the PUD document. While these commitments will ensure that the community is walkable and connected and reflects the site's cultural significance, we also want to create a community that's more attainable to Apex residents. So how do we make homes more attainable? We believe this is accomplished through the combination of smaller lots and increased density. The combination results in more open space and thus a more attainable home price. We're also pleased to offer the $50,000 contribution to the Apex Affordable Housing Fund. Finally, I just want to acknowledge the growing concern for school capacity. Living in this region has many benefits, but it also means a lot of people are moving here, and the schools just haven't been able to keep up, and the cost and availability of land just continues to be what it is here. So due diligence and land acquisition is what we at Alliance specialize in, and so we wanted to use some of these resources just to help maybe locate a suitable school site. So thanks to our roots in the community, we have identified several potential sites in the Apex area that are being considered by Wake County, and so we're just optimistic one of those would fit their needs, and so we're happy to help that, and maybe perhaps we'll have a school on one of them too. In closing, I just want to summarize how the project is summarize how this project is working to address a number of important issues in our community. If approved, we believe Williams Farm will leave a lasting and sustainable mark on Apex. Throughout the process, we've collaborated with our neighbors. We preserved environmental and culturally significant features. We preserved champion trees and canopy. We assisted with school search. And we made significant commitments to site design, architecture, environmental protection, housing attainability, and affordable housing. With that, I just want to say thank you. We're here to answer questions, and we really appreciate your time. Thanks.
Anybody have any questions for Mr. Sumholt? Okay, at this time, we'll open up for any public comments for this case. Seeing none, I will bring it back to the board and close the public comment hearing. And any discussion or possible motion?
How do we want to vote?
We have
Yeah.
Sorry, I had a couple comments.
You want to come up?
These are not one of those names.
Yeah, come up to the podium. Please sign in at the left-hand side when you're done. You can sign up after you.
Right back.
Just name and address.
My name is Trey Alexander. I live at 2728 South Winds Run in Apex. My wife and I have been there 4 years now, so really enjoyed it.
Mr. Alexander, I think you're wanting to speak on the Kelly Woods rezoning,
Am I not?
which is a later agenda item.
Excellent.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Last year is when
Okay. So,
Two items to vote on.
yeah, so I think we'll have discussion and then we'll just hit the transportation amendment first and then. Any comment, discussion, possible motion?
I have a question for clarity about the pump station. And so we're going to have a pump station is it just serving that one neighborhood, or is it going to be capable of serving any other areas? Looks like you're building on station or on campus pump station. Is that just for the 176?
My understanding, and I am not the sewer expert, applicant may have a better understanding, but is that it's a private pump station for this development. Is that right?
Yeah,
Right on the county line, I think.
yeah, it's right at the county line, and so, you know, if later there's a local agreement between Apex and Chatham County, it could be expanded in the future, but essentially the reason we need the pump station is, without the pump station, the invert elevation of the sewer in Hawthorne Woods Road is so high that we would be building monstrous retaining walls, and, you know, it just would be an earth moving exercise, so it's better for us to build a pump station rather than move a bunch of dirt like that. So, yeah, it could be expanded.
Okay.
Basically, the whole site kind of falls south
Yeah, so-
towards the lake, so.
Any other comments or?
I just have one question on the border with what I always knew was Grandma's Pond growing up at Castleberry Lake. Is there any setbacks from the border from Castleberry Lake at where it meets on the southern boundary line?
Castleberry Lake actually has a buffer around it, and this doesn't actually touch the lake itself.
Okay,
Comes
yeah.
really close to it, but it doesn't actually touch the lake itself. Do you see this dotted line kind of trailing its little way around here? That's the edge of the buffer. So this actually stays outside of the lake impact area. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah.
All right.
Yeah, just a comment. I think the applicant has done a good job. They met with the neighbors, met their conditions, met everything the EAB asked for. So I think it's a nice project. You know, always have concern about the schools because, but
That's been going on for 30 years.
yeah. So
I think they've done a really way above average job.
I agree.
I agree.
I think it'd be a good addition.
I agree.
I echo that sentiment. I'm involving the neighbors and hearing those concerns are always first and forefront of my mind. So I'm excited to see the communication that's gone on and the changes that have occurred. And we are going to have to deal with the school system issue because this is a real issue for parents that are moving in and living within our community. These are going to be, I'm thinking, new families that are going to be moving in. And this is going to be a real issue that we need to continue to look at and address. And I appreciate that the applicant has been engaged with the school system.
thanks, Tina. If there's no other comment, well, let's go back to the transportation amendment. I think it makes sense to not have that road go right over the wetlands, so need a possible motion for that one.
I'll move that we approve the transportation amendment, item number 1, as presented by Shannon.
Okay, so I have a motion from Mark and a second from Tina. Any other comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So transportation amendment passes unanimously. And any other comments on case 21CZ04? If not, we need a motion and
I can make a motion to
Okay.
approve.
okay, I have a motion from Keith.
I'll second.
Second from Reggie. Any other comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Yeah,
Cool, Ryan.
thanks. If anybody's walking out and see Ryan out there, we need to have him come back. We have to go find Ryan.
Yeah.
No Ryan?
Sitting back.
Oh. Yeah.
I didn't bring It's delayed.
All right, so we will move to the next item. Shannon will present the public hearing and possible motion regarding amendments to the thoroughfare and Collector Street map for Advanced Apex. This is related to the Cash Corporate Center.
Actually, Willow Hills is next.
Oh,
It's one of the CZ03.
so, okay, so we'll go to Will Hill. I'm sorry, so Shelley, you're back up. This is a possible hearing and possible motion regarding rezoning case 21 CZ03, the Willow Hills PUD.
So one more time, we're on the western side of the town's jurisdiction. This time we're south of 64 though, over towards the intersection of New Hill Olive Chapel and Olive Chapel Road. This is just a PUD amendment. So this rezoning case was approved by town council in 2019, and the applicant is coming back in. They don't want to change anything about dimensional standards or density or anything like that. What happened was in the earlier PUD, there's this language requiring a 5-foot sidewalk to go around the corner of New Hill Olive Chapel and Olive Chapel. And as some of you may know, there's a cemetery there, kind of an old one. So when they got out there to try to build that, they realized there are headstones in the right of way, and nobody wanted to move those. We didn't want to move them. They didn't want to move them. Everybody wanted to preserve them exactly as is. So we realized that there was a condition in the PUD that actually required it. So they've come back in with new language, which I'll briefly summarize for you here. Basically just, we're shifting it from the outside corner of the cemetery to the inside corner of the cemetery. And I'll show you a diagram in just a second. A 5-foot sidewalk shall be constructed along the internal property line shared with the cemetery. The sidewalk shall be located between the 10-foot Type B landscape buffer and the historic home. It'll be located in a 12-foot public access easement on HOA-owned common area, so not on a lot. And a metal hoop and picket style fence shall be installed approximately a foot off the sidewalk on the side closest to the historic home. So it'll go between a 10-foot buffer of mostly opaque plants and a metal fence on the other side. And then on the other side of the metal fence, there will be a continuous evergreen hedge. So it'll be it's trying to be respectful of both the cemetery and the historic home. Just to give you an idea, this is what was previously approved. All of this gray is right-of-way. Some of the new right-of-way kind of juts in a little bit because, well, it goes around the cemetery. And we were originally going to do this. Now, move the sidewalk internal, and it'll connect this way. You probably can't see this particularly well, but there's a little dotted line here that shows the fence. And then in between the fence and this dark solid line will be the row of evergreen hedges. And that'll all be maintained and everything by the HOA. And yeah, we worked this out with Capital Area Preservation. They've agreed to it, and staff recommends approval as shown. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them, or the applicant is here as well.
Anybody have a question for Shelley? Would the applicant like to make a quick statement?
Good afternoon, Chair Marks, Vice Chair Skinner, members of the Planning Board. My name is Neil Ghosh. I'm an attorney at the Morningstar Law Group, and I'm representing the applicant today for this PUD amendment. I want to thank Ms. Mayo for her presentation. As she said, this request is meant only to amend a previous commitment which specified the location for a sidewalk, and that location was along the New Hill Olive Chapel Road and Olive Chapel Road. At the time the commitment was made, the applicant, and I believe also the town, was unaware that there were existing grave sites within that right-of-way. So in order to comply with this original commitment, those graves would have to be moved. Obviously, that was not the intended impact. The commitment to off-site sidewalk was meant only to provide a more complete sidewalk network. The impact to the graves is unconscionable, so we are attempting to amend the PUD to reword the sidewalk commitment so that we do not impact those graves. Instead of the sidewalk being completely along the roads, what we propose to do is essentially turn the sidewalk once we get to the cemetery property line, so it comes around the backside, and it would just go around the cemetery property altogether. There still will be a complete sidewalk network. It just won't necessarily be up against that right of way as we originally envisioned. And in my opinion, this new route for the sidewalk also has an added benefit of preserving the existing look of the property at that corner. So even after the sidewalk is installed, as we're proposing here today, when you drive by that corner property, it'll look the same. Instead of, with the previous commitment, there would have been a sidewalk out in front. The new sidewalk condition, as Shelley mentioned, also commits to period appropriate fencing and evergreen landscaping, which will further preserve the historic look and feel. That really is all there is to this one. We just are trying to correct a mistake that was made with the original rezoning, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have, and I thank you for your time and consideration.
Anybody have any questions for the applicant? Okay. At this time, we'll open up for public comment on this case. If anybody wishes to speak. Seeing none, I'll close the public comment and bring it back to the board for discussion and possible motion.
Clever solution to a sticky problem.
Yeah, no, I think it's like how we adjust when things pop up that, weren't planned, and I think it still protects the house and protects the cemetery and still makes a continuous loop around the property, so. Any other comments or possible motion?
I'll make a motion to approve 21.
Motion from Tim, and a second from Mark. Any other comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Now Shannon gets to come up. Public hearing and possible motion regarding the amendments to the thoroughfare and Collector Street map for Advanced Apex. This is related to the Cash Corporate Center. Thanks,
Yes,
Shannon.
thank you. So, as stated, the proposed amendments are related to our certified economic development site, the Cash Corporate Center. It's this large rectangular parcel between 55 and 1010 roads. So the first proposed amendment is to remove this east-west future local connection that would extend from the Burma Drive extension to the Production Drive extension. And this is related to an agreement that's in place for construction of Pristine Water Drive between Burma Drive and Production Drive. So we know that that is moving forward, given the anticipated pattern of development with the Cash Corporate Center. At this point, we are comfortable supporting removal of this east-west local connector. Yes.
Does that mean Burma's going to go all the way down to Pristine? Because it doesn't show it on the picture.
Burma is, yes, it's on our plan to go down to Pristine. This pink line here. But speaking of Burma, there is progress on extending Burma to the south. Not yet all the way to Pristine Water Drive, but as part of the projects moving forward, Burma would be extended. Also, there's progress on extending Production to the south. Again, not yet all the way to Pristine Water Drive, but progress in that regard. There's also a request to remove this north-south future minor collector street. The request is to remove that within the Cash Corporate Center site, but staff's proposing to go ahead and remove that all the way up to Classic Road, as well as the future minor collector that would extend over to Lufkin Road. Knowing now how this site is expected to develop, we no longer feel it's necessary to have these roadways. This would also avoid crossing both a gas line and the Duke electric transmission line further north, and it minimizes impacts to additional properties in this vicinity. These requests were reviewed with staff from Public Works and Transportation, Police, Fire, Parks, Rec, and Cultural Resources, Economic Development, and Administration. All can support the requests as shown. The fire chief did ask that I note and explain that it's still important and it's still a goal to provide additional emergency access to this basin, although their priority for that is Jesse Drive, and these particular changes are not a concern. That I'm happy to, planning staff also support these changes, and I'm happy to try to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, thank you, Shannon. Anybody have any questions for Shannon? No. Okay. This time we'll open it up for public comment. Anybody wish to comment on this transportation amendment? Seeing none, I'll close the public comment, bring it back to the board for any discussion or possible motion.
Everyone, and excited to see that we're making amendments based on where growth is happening for this area. So I'm definitely going to be supporting this amendment.
Thank you, Tina. Any other comments or possible motion?
I can make a motion to approve the amendments as presented.
Okay, I have a motion from Tina. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Tommy. Any other comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. All right, item number 5, Laura. Public hearing and possible motion regarding rezoning case 21 CZ10 to Kelly Woods.
Yes, good afternoon. This is rezoning case 21 CZ10 for Kelly Woods, located at 2300 and 2324 Kelly Road. All right, these properties are located in this general area. It is in our ETJ. The subject properties are a total of 19.424 acres located south of Holland Road, west of Kelly Road, and north of Southwind Run. This property also has a few streams that are going through it, as well as heavily wooded and with residential structures on both properties. The properties are currently zoned rural residential and a little bit of residential agriculture. The adjacent zonings are to the north, rural residential, residential agriculture. To the east, residential agriculture, and plan unit development conditional zoning, which is associated to West Village. To the south, we have rural residential and plan unit development conditional zoning, as well with West Village. And to the west, we have rural residential. The applicant is proposing to rezone this to medium density conditional zoning. The 2045 land use map identifies this as medium density residential. The proposed rezoning to medium density conditional zoning is consistent with that land use classification. The applicant conducted a neighborhood meeting on March 30th, 2021, and a copy of the neighborhood report is in your packet. Please note that the property located at 2508 South Winds Run was included in the neighborhood meeting originally, but is now no longer included in the rezoning petition. So I just wanted to point that out. A full list of the proposed uses and zoning conditions can be found on page 2 of the staff report. The applicant is proposing single-family, utility minor, greenway, recreation facility private, and accessory apartment. To provide a summary of the 12 zoning conditions proposed, I wanted to point out that the Environmental Advisory Board held a pre-application meeting for this rezoning on March 18th, 2021. The suggestions from the Environmental Advisory Board can be found on page 3 of the staff report. There are a total of 11 suggested conditions from the EAB, and the applicant has reflected that there's 8 out of 11 in the zoning conditions, 3 out of 10. So one of the zoning conditions is combined to form 2 suggestions. The 2 that were not added were in reference to preserved tree canopy within all buffers and perimeter boundaries. And the response is that preservation of trees within required perimeter buffers and in other RCA areas is already required per UDO. The second is areas outside of a new construction will be preserved to maintain native habitat systems. The response is it will meet UDO requirements to provide 30% of RCA or 35% RCA if the subdivision is mass graded. The other zoning conditions are, number 1, the development shall have a maximum of 45 single-family residential lots and a maximum density of 2.32 dwelling units per acre. Number 2, the proposed minimum setbacks for the single-family residential lots shall be the front 20 feet, rear 20 feet, side 5 feet, and the corner side 10 feet. And number 9, there are the typical architectural conditions that we see for single-family. And number 12, any cul-de-sac that is accessed from South Winds Run shall not be subject to UDO section 7.2.1.G.3. A letter of impact from Wake County Public School System was received for this rezoning and is included in the staff report packet. Wake County Public School System indicates that schools at elementary and high school grade levels within the current assignment area for the proposed rezoning / development are anticipated to have insufficient capacity for future students, transportation to schools outside of the current assignment. School expansion or construction within the next 5 years may address concerns at the high school grade levels. Approval of the rezoning is reasonable because the proposed medium-density residential conditional zoning district is consistent with the 2045 land use plan. The proposed rezoning is reasonable and in the public interest because it permits single-family residential development consistent and compatible with the surrounding area. The proposed rezoning will maintain the character and appearance of the area and provide the flexibility to accommodate the growth in population, economy, and infrastructure, consistent with that contemplated by the 2045 land use map. Planning staff can recommend approval with conditions as offered by the applicant. I'm here to answer any questions as well as the applicant in the audience.
Lauren, tell me a little more about this cul-de-sac exclusion.
Yes, sir. So the section that, and I can also, Russell's here to as well add to it, but the current section is 2 or more cul-de-sacs that share a single means of ingress and egress shall not exceed 1,200 feet in length measured cumulatively as they were on one cul-de-sac. So if you...
So you won't have any stubs, basically.
Correct. And if, I can also pin it to Russell, but with this stream buffer, the stream, and there will be a buffer called, if this is approved, that MSP, Master Subdivision Plan, it would be very unlikely for them to put a road over a stream crossing, so that would also help development depending on their plan. And if Russell would like to add anything or any other questions?
Good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Lauren? Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Would the applicant like to make a statement?
Hi, everyone. Thanks for your time this evening. My name is Emily Rothrock. I'm a landscape architect with ESP Associates, and with me I have Stephen Freeman, the applicant. We put together a quick presentation, and I wanted to give you an update where we are in this process and try to answer some more questions if you have any. To start out, Lauren did a really good job, and we've been coordinating with staff back and forth. So they've been really helpful to help us come up with a good approach to this project. There's a couple of really unique features on the site that I'll point out, so I'll explain those to you here in a minute with a diagram. But as she mentioned, we've been working with the Environmental Advisory Board and working with the conditions that they've suggested to make them enforceable and appropriate to this project. We've had our neighborhood meeting as required by the town. I wanted to give you another update. We've been in contact with some other neighbors who have had questions. So we've set another neighborhood meeting for this Wednesday to open it up to a further outreach and allow them to have more input on the project and express their concerns and see how we can work with them to answer any questions that they might have. We've also done some preliminary investigation for the environmental features on the site, such as potential wetlands and the stream buffer requirements. So I'll show you this diagram and explain that a little bit further. So since this is a rezoning and it does not require an actual plan for this submission, we have put together this bubble diagram to kind of explain the site a little bit better. As Lauren mentioned, we're adjacent to Holland Road. We are showing the 10-foot right-of-way dedication that would be required for the future 80-foot right-of-way. Adjacent to Kelly Road, we're showing the 25-foot right-of-way dedication that would be required for the future 110-foot right-of-way there. And then on South Winds Run, no future right-of-way dedication. We have an access point shown from both South Winds Run as well as Holland Road. And really quickly, just wanted to give you a brief overview. We have an existing sewer easement that's running through the center of this parcel here, as well as a stream that you can see with this 100-foot buffer offset. We are trying to be as respectful as we can to that natural feature. And in talking with some of the consultants on the team and with the staff, it's something that we think should be preserved. And so it's kind of a unique feature to this site and something that we've been talking through. Stephen can speak to that a little bit more, but it is not typical that you would have a development that is broken up by an environmental feature like that. However, we think this is a really good opportunity for this site to create some unique outdoor open space areas. And you can see this yellow arrow here. This is a future proposed pedestrian connection. Right now, with the existing structures and vehicular access ways, this is a driveway that goes over the stream. So the intent is not to impact this buffer or any of the environmental features any further. It's simply to create a pedestrian trail that would help connect neighbors from one side or the other. We also think that some options moving forward would be to consider what those green areas might be, what that experience might be. So one side of the neighborhood might have a different type of open space than the other, allowing people to go back and forth. And I think another thing to point out in this process, we have started to reach out to council members, and we've definitely been listening to what they've been saying. So we've heard a lot, again, about the schools and Wake County Public Schools. We reached out to Betty Parker, and I got some information from her in terms of what's planned. We've been in coordination, and as Lauren mentioned, it seems that the high school capacity might be accommodated, although the elementary school still seems to be concerned. So we're going to be working with them to see what is coming down the pipeline and see if we can help to respond to that a little bit better. And then I think that if you guys have any more questions on the site layout, yeah. And so some of these conditions I'm going to touch on and help explain a little bit more of the environmental aspects. And again, I'm a landscape architect, so this is something that I'm really interested in and we consider on every project. Lauren went through the conditions, but I'll point out that numbers 3 through 10 are from the Environmental Advisory Board, and we are looking to help meet these as best we can with this project. would include the perimeter buffers. I know some of the discussions we're going to have with the neighbors on Wednesday and have had in the past neighborhood meeting have been about what this project would look like and what type of buffers would be provided. So we are showing right now above and more than what's required by the UDO. For this project, we are required to have a 20-foot wide type B buffer from this point of the project to the west. And this is adjacent to existing single family. From this point to the east, we're adjacent to Southwinds Run. We are still showing that 20-foot wide buffer continuing along that frontage, and then the appropriate required buffers along those future right-of-ways. So I think as we talk through this and hear additional neighborhood meeting questions and concerns, that's going to be something that we're working to resolve with them, what the type of buffer is and what the width is and how we can accommodate some of those questions. And then I'm going to hand it over to Stephen. He's with AMH Development. I'm going to let him introduce his company and what they're proposing.
Thank you, members of the board, ladies and gentlemen, Lauren, for your help as well. My name is Stephen Freeman. I'm the market manager with AMH Development. We are the development subsidiary of American Homes for Rent, which is the nation's largest purpose-built single-family community developer in the country. And we are currently expanding here in the Triangle, bringing other alternatives to local communities and local residents for residential purposes. We're very excited about this opportunity. It's a unique property. It allows us to respond to Apex's goals for environmental sustainability and affordability. We are, unlike a lot of developers or builders that do work in the community, we are vertically integrated, and we are very invested in seeing a quality community be developed, one that is a positive for the community, a positive for the residents. We are in this case, the applicant, we're the developer, we're the builder, we're the owner, and we're the property manager. So we maintain the communities completely. There is no exit strategy, flip strategy, where we get in and get out. We are truly vested with the community. With that, from a quality standpoint, and I'm sorry, I ignored my own slides. The first slide there is just a little bit more about the company and, again, how we develop, again, working with the EAB from an environmental perspective and the unique features of the site. We anticipate kind of one community, but two kind of unique pods, again, given the north-south variation required with the stream buffer. But, we anticipate all the homes will back up to the woods and or to the streets, just given the nature of the community. Homes will not back up to each other. Every home is completely sodded. And I've got some examples of some of our communities locally and in the southeast, just so you can kind of just quickly see some of the different features, and then the homes themselves. But all the homes have sodded yards, fenced yards. Every home has a fenced yard. Exterior materials, and I'll bounce around for just a second. Exterior materials, as you would expect, hardy siding, brick, stone. We invest again on the front end with typically upgraded finishes, both interior and exterior. On the interior, you'll see upgraded cabinetry, stainless appliances, granite tile, hard surface flooring, just as standard features. In addition, from the EAB's recommendation, all the homes will have solar conduit built into the homes. Very comparable to what Stanley Martin's West Village is delivering, will be of the same caliber. And what's unique, again, about us and our program is that we're really helping to provide another alternative to the community. And that can be in terms of empty nesters, folks that are downsizing, corporate relocations, changes in a marital or family status, those that just want the maintenance and flexibility, the flexibility that comes with maintenance free, because we do again, with the corporate investment and corporate strategy, we maintain 100% of the exteriors. So that's the landscaping, that's the buildings, the roofs, the materials, all those are maintained as part of our program. So in addition, in this particular case, just going back to the first slide for a moment, again, being very conscious of the environmental side, and again, bringing something to the market that may provide a little more affordable opportunity for different folks. We did not include, and I do want to go ahead and address and offer, we're also going to be contributing to the Affordable Housing Fund as well, and are happy to make a contribution of $250 per number of units once we arrive on our final number. I'm happy to go ahead and make that condition, add that condition as part of consideration as well. And again, as Emily said, we met with the homeowners and all those that were on the list provided from planning and zoning. And again, as we've approached today's date, we heard from some additional neighbors as well. So we're happy to meet with them and talk further about any questions or concerns they may have. So thank you. We appreciate your consideration and look forward to continuing the process.
Thank you, Stu. Anybody have any questions for the applicants at this time? Brian?
Sorry, I think you can still hear me. Are these do you have any age-targeted product in the lineup? Like if it's a master down, no steps?
We are not restricted in that context, and we're still evaluating which plans to include in the community.
I have a question as well about the rental program. Are they short-term rentals, or are there a minimum time for the rental?
Minimum is 1 year. On our resident profile, our average tenure is 3. And our average age is about, across the board, our average age is about 38.
I have a question as it relates to the affordability. I appreciate that this evening that you'll be contributing to the Affordable Housing Fund. What will the market range of these homes look like for rentals?
So again, they'll be from a construction equivalent or value equivalent, they'll be very comparable to West Village. From a rent standpoint, we're still evaluating that. So I'm going to give you a bit of a spread of just what we typically see. And that would be 1,700 to 2,200, which would be very comparable to apartments and the local individual rental community as well.
Okay, and I think I would then defer to Mr. Akers' question as it relates to the target population. I would be very interested in seeing some first floor masters and zero entry. Like that's pretty key if we're going to have any rental program that is allowing for downsizing.
Be happy to take that into consideration. Look at that.
I appreciate that. I do. Okay, yep, I'll save my comments for later. Thank you.
Go ahead, Martin.
Are these single family on their own lots, or is it owned by y'all own?
These will be platted as individual lots.
Okay.
Just as any traditional single family.
I'm so sorry. Well, last question. Is there an option to purchase a home for renters?
Not at this time, but that may change. I can't speak to the future operations plans, but not today.
And how about in any of your other rental communities that you thank you for including sitting in this packet? Any of these currently offered in a rental?
No, right now it's not in the business plan.
Okay, so that is.
But it's
not something that you offer in your portfolio.
Not today.
Okay, very good. Thank you so much.
I would add, though, as I think about this, there are occasions where, as part of the company's overall portfolio, that homes are sold and refreshed. So it does happen, but as far as a rent to own, that currently is not in the program.
I'm assuming that y'all have other communities, because I've seen this on multiple listing service quite a bit, so there must be something local?
So that first community is.
I've seen your.
This is in, I labeled it as Raleigh, but it's in Clayton.
Clayton, okay.
And we have a second actually under development off New Hill Holloman that hasn't gone vertical yet.
Okay.
But we're growing across the triangle locally. This is a new venture for us that's about 6 years old, freestanding purpose-built communities. But nationally, we own over 50,000 homes across the country. And locally, even in the triangle, when you see this on MLS, the company owns about 2,800 homes just in the triangle. So there is a strong investment in the market and a very strong dedicated team of operations and property management and maintenance vested in each of the local markets that we're in.
Thank you.
Sure.
Is the property management and maintenance housed on site, or is that something off-site that gets
No,
handled?
it's off-site.
Off-site.
Do you have any idea of how many of these homes, how many of the homes in the triangle and across the southeast have been listed as Airbnb or VRBO sites?
I have no knowledge of that, but I would imagine none because it's in our lease restrictions and part of our qualifications with the residents that restrict that.
And how is that listed as restricted?
No subleasing?
I think it's just in the standard leasing language that prevents that.
Do you have that standard leasing language available?
I can see what's available.
That would be very helpful.
Okay.
Are the residents that are the renters responsible for upkeep of the yards and whatnot?
They are not. They're encouraged to do their own plantings and really take an active role. But from an absolute management perspective, we maintain.
Wow, you don't even have to cut your grass.
It's a nice option.
All right. Seeing no other questions at this time, we may call you back if we have questions. but,
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
At this time, we'll open it up for any public comment regarding this case. Yeah. Yeah, just. And just when you're done, just sign up over there.
Okay. I'm Cindy Donnelly. I'm at 2508 Southwinds Run. Our property borders the new proposed development. We just have two things that we'd like to request. One is we'd like a fence between the neighborhood and our Southwinds Run street. And the second thing is the biggest concern with our neighborhood, because it was built a long time ago, everybody's on wells. And a lot of people are really struggling with their water as it is now. And they're concerned that more, as things get built up around us, it might affect their well capacity. And with 540 coming through, it definitely did affect people's well capacity. So the other thing is that we would just maybe like to consider if the developer would provide some assistance with bringing water into our neighborhood. That's it.
Okay. Thank you, Cindy. Make sure you sign in. Thank you. Anybody else wish to make a public comment?
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
No worries.
I'm completely new to this and don't really understand what I'm even doing here. Ms. Tina, you asked a lot of good questions that I honestly hadn't even thought of, so appreciate you standing up for us.
Your name?
Trey Alexander. I live at 2728 Southwinds Run. I live at the end of Miss Cindy's Road. My wife and I have been in Apex about 4 years. We've really enjoyed being there. I go back to the same thing that everyone's kind of brought up, like the school situation, right? I mean, elementary schools are stacked to the rafters right now. If it's a great property, it'll be a great property in 4 years. After there's a school built, we can wait, we can make things happen then. Maybe it works out then. Then they're proposing a neighborhood that's not attached. It's not a community. You can't attach a community that's not attached. So I think it's hard. Like we want to stand up for our neighborhoods and stuff like that, right? We have 12 houses on our street, and the thought of another road that comes in cutting off of our neighborhood that doesn't really stand with our neighborhood or is not even part of our neighborhood is kind of bizarre and awkward as well. So that's something else. I think it's difficult. They're from AMH. They own AMR. They're a subsidiary that has an office in Morrisville, but they're from California. Do they truly value what we in Apex value? I can't think that they do. I don't know that for a fact, but I mean, you guys know this way better than I do. You've been here much longer. You'll be here after I walk out of this room. You understand way more than I understand. But I mean, you guys have basically built this town to what it is, what it's going to be. And so I hate the thought of like having 45 homes stacked into this amazing property, into this amazing area that are 3.5-year turnovers, if that, who maybe they'll manage their own yard, maybe they won't, we'll manage it for them. I think there's all those are answers that you can give here, but how does that stack up in 2 years? I think that's really all I had. But thank you guys for hearing me out. So I appreciate you, and I'm not envious of your position and having to like choose and direct things the way they go. And so I appreciate you guys as well. So
Thank you.
Thanks, Trey. Anybody else wish to speak? Yes, sir.
Go ahead, or?
Yeah, you can, just name and address and then you can sign in afterwards.
My name is Owen Walker, and my address is 2616 South Winds Run. So I've been in the neighborhood for about 27 years, the West Wind subdivision, which is the subdivision that the road leading into this project will break off of and into the proposed subdivision. And if this subdivision is allowed to continue to go ahead, it will impact our lives in the West Wind community substantially. So we are planning to meet with the client, and we're having a telephone conference on Wednesday, and I'm just proposing to the board that if you're planning to make a decision today, that decision should be tabled until after we've had the meeting with the developer. That's really my position. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else wish to speak during the public comment section? All right, seeing none, I'll close the public comment and bring it back to the board for discussion and possible motion.
I have a couple of questions for Lauren, actually.
Lauren? Got some questions.
So Lauren, to the last gentleman's comments about voting prior to having another neighborhood meeting, are we a little premature in our voting tonight?
You are able to recommend a continuance. I can let Amanda speak more to it since it's rules and procedures.
So there is a limit of 30 days before your recommendation has to be passed to town council. And so I need to look at, and the council has canceled their July 13th meeting. So I don't believe it would work out that you could meet with them again and fall within that 30-day time frame.
Okay.
So this is after this is scheduled for the June 22nd town council meeting. So council will definitely hear this after the neighborhood meeting.
All right. So any feedback from that neighborhood meeting would go to council?
The applicant could request that this be continued if you continue this, and they have one guaranteed continuance at town council. So they could request a continuance at the June 22nd meeting. So it is possible, as Lauren said, but technically the council could hear it within 30 days.
Okay, thank you.
But this is for the rezoning, so would anything change with postponing it over neighborhood meeting just for rezoning? I mean, the zoning's probably not going to change, correct?
They may add conditions, or depending on how the applicant and they might mitigate the neighbors' concerns. They may find something, a compromise, depending on what they hear. So that is always an option, that outcome. It may be different, it may not, but that may be.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
That's my first question. The second question is, since we have one parcel here, but it's really gonna be broken up into two discontiguous parcels, how are we working EMS and garbage collection, et cetera? Is that something that happens during development planning, or?
That is reviewed during site plan.
Okay.
Do you have anything to add for roadways or transportation for
The
utilities?
stream that's in the middle there is like, you can't run garbage trucks or anything over, it's just gonna be foot traffic, so it's really two discontiguous neighborhoods.
Yeah, I mean, it's no different than other neighborhoods that don't happen to be connected. If you're asking us what we recommend in an ideal world, I could tell you what I would like to see, but obviously as development comes forward, we have to consider constraints on certain sites. So what we've worked with them on is, provided the zoning condition to have an exception from the UDO concerning cul-de-sac length, which really has to do more with South Winds Run than the development, because South Winds Run by itself is already an extremely long cul-de-sac, so you could have an extremely short cul-de-sac connected and it would already go above the UDO rule. So it would in fact be a connection to South Winds, where you would have one entry, one exit via South Winds to connect to the south end of the development for EMS, garbage services, or any services. And you would have one entry off of Holland Road for all services for that portion of the development. Certainly not ideal, but we provide connections where we can, and it's certainly up to the developer proposing a plan and up to planning board and town council to decide if they're okay with having separate connections and not connecting based on the constraints that are presented.
Thank you.
I have a question about schools. Should I be asking that of Lauren?
If she knows, you can ask.
If it's on the report.
Feel free to punt. Feel free to punt.
Okay.
So, and this has come out, almost every meeting for the last several months since we started the process where the school board school district says, so that's kind of scary. And then we have a resident here who's bringing up the same issue. So I have more of a procedural question, chicken and the egg. Do the schools typically respond to development and lag? Or do the schools typically anticipate and proceed and build a school and then the development follows? And my observation for the last 5 years that I've been here is that the schools lag, but I don't know if that's intentional or just, what do you?
I will say it's
I
a
can
very
give you a parent's
complicated,
perspective.
it is a very complicated topic. We provide data to Wake County Public Schools as developments are submitted, and we meet with them annually to give updates on, for instance, rezonings that may have been approved, but the subdivision still hasn't come through and been approved yet, so there's a delay in their anticipated build-out. And so they work with an outside consultant, ITRI, to model all this data of new development, and it's down to the housing type, number of bedrooms. There's a lot of factors that goes into the anticipated attendance demand on the schools based upon what's proposed. So we update that data with them on an annual basis, as well as providing the information as it's proposed. So we're working with them as much as we can, and we've been very proactive in the last few years about finding sites in town that may be a good fit, such as like Depot 499. We pointed out that was a really big project that had a nice little area that could work well for a school system. The deal worked out. And we're always providing them leads on properties as we get them. The problem is being able, the school system, one, having funding. They have a whole county to deal with. We have a class size mandate for K through 3, which has reduced elementary class size, which wiped out 10 years of capacity in elementary schools. So you have parent choice, so we don't always know where parents are going to choose, maybe if they want to go to a magnet school or not. And then there's the debate between year-round and traditional. So there's ways of addressing capacity issues, but it's not always popular with parents. And then at the last resort, the county could adjust attendance zones. The key is that there is capacity in the Wake County school system. It just may not be at the base school. Transportation to a school outside the base attendance zone may be required to serve these students.
So if we literally did what Trey asked us to do, which is to wait 4 years until their school's built, what you just described and what I've observed and the head nodding I saw over here says it would never catch up.
No.
So if we do all the things that you guys do, thank you, and we approve something that we think is in the best interest of the town from a residential point of view, diversity of income, diversity of housing types, which is what I like about this, then it really, Trey, we have to depend on the staff to carry the water to the school district constantly.
I will add, it's not that easy. And more particular to add to Lauren's point is that it is even more complicated from the parental side, having been here for a couple of decades and having four boys in WCPSS and having gone through several versions of what reassignment looks like, what parents hear, what parents understand, let's be clear, the town of Apex has done a much better job and has led the way because of our growth in this side of the county in supporting and helping WCPSS. But I just want to be clear, it is not that easy when you have a parent, this community in particular, will be located a stone's throw away from, in fact, the way the crows fly, from Scotts Ridge Elementary. And the reality is, a parent moving in with a 3 and a 5-year-old who's looking forward to her kid going to Scotts Ridge Elementary may not get that choice because of what it looks like. And I just want to be clear that that is the reality that we need to understand, that parents are walking into, that our neighbors are walking into the community. And we need to understand that.
Do we have a disclosure requirement? I know in past moves, when I had kids that were in school, I would sign 50 forms as I'm buying my house. And one of them usually was a disclosure about school capacity.
Real estate wise, yes.
Yeah, real estate wise, but
Yeah, the realtor.
schools change every year. I mean,
Yeah.
It's done that for the last 30, so it's not like it's something new. I mean, the school you're zoned for, you may not get into this year, but next year you do because they flip to a traditional calendar versus a year-round.